Hello. Uh, haven't done one of these in a little while, so apologies for that. But anyway, it's probably right about that time for another um, raid commentary video. This one is a little bit different though, since it's not really based upon a full, or it's not really based upon a DG raid. Uh, Rather, it's on a training raid that we had last night. Rav was the crown, did a pretty good job, I would say. But really, this isn't even so much about mm, the details of the raid. It's more oriented towards specifically the Arcanist Support role that we have as part of our raid comp. Um, there's been, uh, you know, discussion about uh, how playable the build is in practical combat, and last night presented a good opportunity since a lot of people were playing on positions that they don't normally do in our main raids to actually play the build and see uh, how much merit there was to those discussion topics, and to see also kind of by going full kind of try hard sweat mode on uptimes to see just how much uptime that you could get across the full kind of slate of group buffs that the Arcanist is bringing to the table in our raids. So that's kind of what I have more commentary on here. The kind of spoiler alert that I won't wait till the end for is that buff uptimes were sky high at the end of the raid. So I think it's been now kind of demonstrated that yes, it's a playable build. Yes, you can have really high uptime on all of the most important buffs. But I would agree that it's not necessarily an easy role to play. You'll see that in my own play. In the beginning, you can tell that this one doesn't play support very often and isn't very used to the bar layout. You'll see me specifically cast some very foolish siege shields randomly when I should have been casting a rune break simply because not used to the bar layout. So that's great. And then you also see rapids will fall off for a second or two every now and then in the first half of the raid as I kind of get used to that internal timer of keeping rapids up. But after that, in the second half, you'll see that we probably have our most intense fighting there, maybe on a scroll run back from EP territory. And you'll see that if you're an Arcanist trying to play this role in the future, maybe pay special attention to that because you'll see the role maintaining all the group buffs even while in like very pitched and realistic combat scenarios. So anyway, gonna start the video now, and again, we don't really care what's going on in terms of like the greater dynamics of the raid. I have nothing to say like for healers or DDs or for stacks or anything like that really. We're just laser focusing in on just the support role here. Oh yeah, I guess another kind of thing is that there isn't a whole lot of action on the map. It's basically just this like small man F tier group that we end up fighting a lot. Sometimes with our group, which is bigger than theirs, plus kind of like other random DC zone players. It's not really a fair fight. Other times they're more around our actual numbers. But yeah, you'll see that the battles aren't like anything super crazy.
Okay. Back. Proxies on 3, 2, 1. Proxy.
The main kind of techniques that I think are maybe not widely done on this role. Well, one is just like, so you want to do a bunch of different things, right? You have powerful assault. So what procs powerful assault? All your rapids procs powerful assault. and your vigor procs powerful assault. And basically, you'll maintain sky high uptime on that set by carrying out the functions of the build, right? Maintaining vigor, maintaining rapids. Obviously, rapids is like the absolute priority, cannot drop skill on the build. Like, if you're a support and you're letting rapids drop, like, you should probably find another role to play because not acceptable. Luckily, that's not really an issue these days. But if you're like an aspiring support player, definitely the first thing that you do should be to lock down those rapids, because if you're not doing that, you're failing at the like most fundamental responsibility of the role. But anyway, both of those things will proc powerful assault, and I think in the raid last night, we had 90% whole of raid uptime on that. Like, kind of depends on who's most on crown and whatnot, because it does have a radius. So if you're off like squirreling with some, random players and you're outside of the proc range, then your uptime will be a little bit lower. But like for the purposes of playing the support, like that's on the other player if they're not on crown and you are on crown. Like you're doing your job, staying on crown. They're not doing their job. So
Death throws. Stacking.
the other, I guess, should describe the other abilities and responsibilities here. Uh, we've got the Rune Guard of Freedom right here, and then we've also got the Zenith's Disc. And so Zenith's Disc gives you minor courage when you run through it. So what's the implications of that, right? It means that you want to be putting that down in front of the group, which means you want to have good movement. You want to be on crown. You want to be generally towards the front of the group so that when you put the rune down, people behind you run through it and get the buff. If you're at the tail, you put down the rune, it doesn't matter because there's nobody behind you to actually hit it. So you're just like wasting your mag at that point. So if you're going to play the support, you got to have like very deliberate, intentional, conscientious movement and positioning where you're towards the front of the group. And then for your Rune Guard of Freedom, not only is that like a very good kind of like break glass in case of emergency survival tool for you as the Arcanist, but also it'll give minor resolve to everybody around you when you cast it. And so what's the implications of that? It means that similarly to when you cast your Vigor, if you just kind of like migrate your way towards the middle of the group and then cast that, you'll be giving minor resolve to the entire group for a very hefty duration. And, that's an important buff. Like, resistances are the easiest way to stack mitigation. They're the best sources of mitigation, just in terms of how they're handled in the background by the game and the damage calculation. So the higher uptime you have on plus armor buffs, the better. And we have switched out a lot of Blessing of Restorations to class burst heals, and in so doing, we don't have as much uptime on minor resolve from Blessing of Restoration as we used to. And even then, it was never like as high as it probably should have / could have been, simply because our healers generally aren't in the practice of randomly casting Blessing when we're not taking big damage. So you as the Arcanist, though, you can keep this up, again, assuming that the group is doing well in terms of overall group movement and sticking together. You can hit most of the group most of the time with this ability. Then you take a lot of that burden off of the healers for maintaining minor resolve. And the main upside of that is that you won't have minor resolve just coming in as like a reaction to big damage. It'll be up like proactively for when you receive big damage. It'll be there mitigating like, nickel and dime DOT ticks and other kind of background damage, suppressing that by 5-ish%. And, that all adds up because a lot of bad things happen when, even with not necessarily like big damage, but a lot of stacked DOTs, and you get like the Azure Blight damage thrown in there. that these things shouldn't kill you, but they can if you don't have like good hot coverage, good mitigation, good barriers, can make people's health bars begin to swing around, and that's kind of what gets people to panic. And panic is kind of like the mortal enemy of good group play, because when people kind of lock down and go into survival mode and neglect the rest of their role responsibilities, that's when you can like rapidly see the group implode. So you're kind of one of the first lines of defense, mitigating some of that wild health bar swinging. I guess the last ability to mention is just Gibbering Shield. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's in an AoE around you. It's like pretty heavily nerfed compared to how it used to be, but it does stack with Gibbering and any other shields that you might have, like Bone Surge. You basically want to just cast this whenever we're in combat / taking damage that isn't just non-trivial damage, or that isn't just trivial damage. It's we really want to work on our supports pumping up the overall casts of Gibbering, because like holding ults at 500 is most of the time just kind of wasted potential on the roll, be that a healer with a barrier or somebody casting Gibbering.
Nice Colossus.
So I'll fast forward a little bit here.
Outer.
Looks like F tier kind of
Outer. Push that.
pawns half the group here. We get chased out.
Do you have a necro or no?
Um,
Go outside and go for a camp.
can see that,
Yep.
well, this isn't very
Yeah,
useful for
camp,
teaching
go for camp.
purposes. We hit the respawn on the camp. It's already a very chaotic situation. This is the beginning of the raid, so
Okay.
even in these
Rocky,
non-GG raids, it
3,
always
2, 1,
kind of
Rocky.
obeys that same
Going
general
back north.
pattern of it takes people in half an hour to an hour to like actually get
Hold up.
Yeah.
focused
move
up
back,
and
move back.
locked in
Up
on
north
what
to
they're
get the
doing.
necro over here.
Okay.
North.
Roxy's on 3, 2, 1.
That
Rocky.
was a very nice necro res though.
Down.
Okay, go south. Go towards the lumber mill. Tighter. Lumber. Move towards lumber mill.
Skipping forward a little more, we
Going
just
in.
get overrun by the Zerg there.
3, 2, 1. Roxy.
I think I'll actually
Don't go in.
mute the background audio. But so like oftentimes when people, like I think my vigor uptime was like 92% on this roll last night, and basically like when people see big uptime on vigors and they're curious about how do you, because there's kind of like, as you scale up as a healer, from like a new healer to an intermediate healer to like a good healer to like a great healer, you pass certain vigor uptime / like hot uptime thresholds along the way, and oftentimes people get kind of bogged down in the 50 to 60% ish range, and it's kind of hard for them to break through that. And the answer is basically just like it's as with most things, right? You have to play quickly. You need to maximize your casts. Like the more casts of vigor that you make, the higher uptime will be. It's kind of like self-evident, but like people generally tend to underestimate. Like when people say like cast a lot of vigors, they'll be like, okay, I'll cast like 500. No, like 1,000 is like the minimum for a raid of like our standard duration, that like you really need to be surpassing 500 vigor casts, or sorry, surpassing 1,000 vigor casts. And certain of our healers can go much higher above that. There was a raid the other day that somebody was closing in on 2k. Granted, that was like a 2 hour or a 4 hour raid or something like that, but it just goes to show that like 500 doesn't cut it. And another component that goes into that is like making sure to keep your casts of vigor up even when you're under pressure and under stress. And again, that's kind of like a general kind of PvP reps and experience thing, that the more you're put in stressful situations, the less they stress you out, and the easier it is to kind of like maintain the fundamental mechanics of the role that you're playing. So, like you'll see that even, again, we're not like in insane situations in this raid, but like when we are under attack and whatever, like you'll see me squeeze in the vigor casts rather than just kind of like shirking them and just playing selfishly. So we're going to push in here, and it ends up being kind of like a nothing burger because there's only one dude on the ground floor, but generally, like, if you're an Arcanist, you want to cast your Gibbering when you're going into, like, a damage situation. For all we knew, they were, in a concave here around the stairs, and they were all going to ult dump on us as soon as we pushed in, so you want to have your Gibbering shield up and ready to receive damage when that situation arises. Like that situation. Like the ambush wasn't on the first floor, it was on the second floor. And then here, like, so you see the outline of the Zenith's disc, right? So we ran up these stairs. I was towards the head of the group. Like, if you're just thinking about where the group is going to flow to, this is very narrow. If you put his disc up here, basically by definition, everybody has to pass through the disc. And then you can put it up here as opposed to like down here on the stairs, because there's a high chance that like action will continue on this second floor area here. So the disc lasts for 20 seconds. Combat could flow through the disc. It could remain stationary in the disc. Like, it could go up the stairs, down the stairs. Like, each time that happens, people will get that buff reapplied to them. So throwing it down here in like an area that you expect to have a lot of traversal by the team is just good, because it's like a very efficient use of that cast. That there's tons of opportunity for people to be getting that buff, and that'll save you magicka. You can see that here down that Rune Guard of Freedom has lapsed, so I'll need to be casting that pretty soon here. There's refresh the quick cloak, get some more vigor casts here, hit the rapids. Still need to get that Rune Guard. This is early in the raid though, so I haven't got really kind of the rotation ironed out. There's the Rune Guard finally. But you can see that was like in a good kind of, there were plenty of opportunities to cast this before for like good value, but you can see that like the entire group is down here on the first floor within 8 meters of me, so this cast of Rune Guard right there will hit everybody in the group here and give them that buff for 20 seconds. So continuing up the stairs, I think we're just kind of like zerging down these last couple of dudes here. Rune Break is kind of the last thing that I haven't talked about so far. That's another kind of, if there was one area where probably I could have put more emphasis last night, it was with the Rune Breaks. Part of that was because I was hitting Siege Shield during a couple of those, which was really stupid. But that's another kind of like bread and butter kind of goal for the role, is adding that really juicy damage synergy proc to our players. Anyway, you can see the rune or the Zenith's disc, because we're chasing these, again, kind of zerging these guys down. Maybe not the most honorable thing in the world, but I think that it was communicated to them that it was just kind of like a messing around training raid. So ordinarily, I don't ever like or take pleasure in zerging down people like that. It's just not a good use of ball group time. It's kind of like punching downward, as they say. You want to be punching upward as a ball group, taking on groups bigger than yourself, or at least of the same size if it's another ball group. This is kind of a boring sequence here, but I kept it in the video simply because I wanted to demonstrate like keeping up all the buffs while you're on this isn't like the hottest ram in the world, but like there are several oils on us. You can see there's cold fire coming down. So it's also not like the most sleepy ram experience in the world either. So you can see that I'm even keeping up rapids, which is like of somewhat debatable use here because like yeah, there's a training raid, so people are kind of off doing like who even knows what right now. But if this were a more serious raid, people would be better stacked here on the ram, not moving much. So in that situation, like keeping up rapids, not exactly a paramount concern like it is when you're in movement. On the other hand, it's good to keep up just in case you catch a negate or something, and then the entire group needs to like get out of town extremely fast. Having that rapids up ahead of time is good to facilitate that escape. So you can see my ulti just came up. We're taking damage. Should be casting that. There it goes. Re-upped the siege shield. Re-upped the Rune Guard of Freedom that was just about to drop. Keeping up the rapids. You can see my vigor is spread widely here. I should probably flip to the other bar to see what the Zenith's disc is doing. Yeah, so got to refresh the Zenith's disc, which goes down there, then the Rune Guard after it, flip to the other bar, get the quick cloak back up for the major evasion, major expedition, ulti's back up, cast ulti. Now we're taking pretty big damage. Some nice blood altars there, but not enough for the rest of the group. I guess in that situation it is good that rapids, well, was partially up. I think we just get chased down here. Maybe we get a camp. There's not a whole lot that you can do as a support player in this type of situation, right? Because you have heals, but you're not a healer. Best you can kind of do is keep up the buffs on what remains of the group. Make sure that you do use your ulti when you see big damage come in. We are doing a better job of surviving as like a small man group here, now outnumbered than we were as a larger group. But I think we still get Zerg down here. This is kind of some random brawling. Rune Guard you can see is down, so I should be looking for an opportunity to get the Rune Guard back up on most of the group. They're kind of coalescing here. It would probably be a good time to cast it. There it goes. There's the Zenith's. Refresh rapids. Get vigor back up on everybody. Check my quick cloak. There it is. Refresh rapids. Need quick cloak. There, get the quick cloak. This is around where I start to get things down a little bit better. You can see Rune Guard is down again. There it goes, though the group is spread out so it doesn't hit everybody. Re-up the vigors. So you can see that, like, basically try to cast 2 vigors every time that you cast vigor. Like, you're not a healer, and people have said that this role is under, like, big sustain crunch, and I'm an orc, so I get no sustained benefit from racial choice. You can see that, like, sustain is not the coziest thing in the world, but also you can see that it's very manageable. The big thing that you need to avoid doing at all costs is like double casting rapids or over casting rapids, right? Like generally if you're casting rapids, it lasts for 8 seconds from the countdown. It'll start you out at 7 because 0 still counts for the purposes of the buff. So you want to be recasting your rapids basically on like maybe 2, 1, and 0, but most especially on the 1 or the 0. as it counts down. So basically, like, you want to make sure that your rapids is up for 6 seconds, 7 seconds, full 8 seconds. You don't want to be refreshing it like after it's only been up for 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds. That's just like a 100% waste of a lot of stamina. And if you're doing that like habitually, then yeah, you're gonna get stammed out really quickly, or or you're always going to be under such stam threat that you're never going to squeak in like your vigor casts that you know ought to. You're probably going to let your quick cloak drop because you won't have enough stam for it. But that stems primarily from kind of like, I mean, ultimately it comes from a good place, which is like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure that rapids doesn't drop, and like that's a great goal. But you can do that without overcasting rapids. You can see they're forming up. And this is kind of like, I mean, this is not how you would fight as like a ball group. This is more just kind of like random brawling. So let's just skip through a lot of this. We keep kind of going back and forth around this backside of the building here. So I drop my Zenuses like kind of in this arc a bunch simply because the group is transiting through this area a lot. Okay, and like whenever the group kind of comes to a stop like this is your golden opportunity to get like every buff that you can put up on people, get it up. So 2 vigors. Should be refreshing my quick cloak pretty soon here. Just cast the rune guard. Quick cloak, there we go. This is a situation where you want to cast the ulti because they're doing a push on us. Reset the vigors. Zenus's disc. Somewhere in there I refresh the rune guard again. I'd say the other thing about this role is that like you have, you're running 3 swift, so there's little excuse to be at the tail of the group, right? Like you're faster than every DD is. You're at the same speed as the healers are. And then the other thing is that like this is a heavy armor build. You have like a sword and shield and stuff. So basically like if you're the first person to die as the support, like there's no excuse for that. That should never happen. So if you are looking to become a support, just know that like if your movement is bad or like you don't respond to emergent situations and whatnot like quickly, again, maybe not the role that's the best fit for you. Actually, I would say that in a general sense, if you don't have good movement, that maybe ball grouping isn't the best thing. But I also think that movement is something that you can work on and improve, and we've seen zillions of cases of that happening. So if you're bad at it to start out with, not all is lost. It just means that like you really need to put the work into trying to get that right, because it's a core skill. is me realizing, like, I even during PvP do the light attack in between casts, and it really looks dumb when you have a sword and shield. You can see one of these brilliant seed shields here that I've cast instead of a rune break. There's the Zenith's disc because we're running through that corridor. Should be refreshing my vigors. Vigor, vigor, refresh, major evasion, hit the rapids, Zenith's or Rune Guard of Freedom, vigor. Again, this is like not super action-packed combat. We eventually do Zerg them down. The fight goes elsewhere. Can probably skip. Alright, now we're down at Ash. The kind of like underhanded, I don't know, kind of like softball pitch is the rune break being cast. So when you see that animation go, that's what's being done. The if you're looking at the timers down here or on your own bars, depending on what like UI mods you use or not, this is just the base game timers. You can get hung up because Zenith's disc technically lasts for 20 seconds, and that's fine if we're like on a RAM and the entire group is just like living in the disc. But when we're moving, we're not living in the disc, and so the minor courage and the other buffs, they only stick to you for 10 seconds after you leave the disc. So like if we're all running, you know, say in a straight line and you're towards the center or towards the head of the group and you're casting that, the group is running through your disc, and so you don't have 20 seconds to get the disc back on them. You have 10 seconds to get this disc back on them. Otherwise, those buffs will drop. So, like, you can see here that I'm 2 seconds, you know, if I were like, well, this isn't that type of a situation because we're not moving in a straight line, but you can see that it's time basically to be casting a Zenith's disc again. And there it is. Quick cloak, the vigor, rapids. Should be hitting the ulti. Got the rune guard. Should be looking for the Zenith's disc again. Rune break. Should be looking for the disc. Oh. Oh. Get packed up here, it looks like. So we do have the vigors. I think I get my shield off here. Yeah, Response to that could have been faster, I will say. I don't know if it would have saved the group because the gibbering shield isn't like nearly as potent as a barrier is, but it wouldn't have hurt. And this is a situation that I think Stratus was calling out at the time of like this is me using the like clapping hands emoji for emphasis. Like if you play a necro and people die, you need to abandon your previous train of thought on what you were doing, and you need to hold for that necro res. This getting these hand reses like this in like a sweaty raid environment, this is unacceptable. This needs to be done with a necro res because camping out on bodies to do a manual res is like, if you're playing against another group, that's the please bomb me button. If you're playing against a Zerg, even like dumb Zergs can sense when you're static and vulnerable like this, and they'll jump on top of you. So we can't have this. If you're a necro and like maybe the necro healer just cast their barrier in response to like getting bombed here, or okay, our Necro Healer is actually one of the dead here, but so that means Necro DD, no Colossus for you until these people are up. It's always funny how, you know, after the group gets clapped, you see movement tighten up again. As people are kind of like, you know, you touch the hot stove, you get burned, and then people are like, oh yes, maybe playing more on Crown would be a good call. That's pretty boring. These engagements with them are a little bit better because we're down to 11. And we don't have any other... Well, okay, no, we do still have some random DC stacked with us. Anyway, I mean, we're still like just shy of doubling them up in terms of players, so... There's the... I always blank on what that skill is actually called. I just call it the rune, even though people will confuse that with rune break, because... Coming in for an attack, so you need the gibbering. Any day now. There it goes. You can see even this late in the raid hitting the Seed Shield instead of the Rune Break. Cool, cool. I think that's the last time I do that though. Need the Rune Guard. There it is. Need the Zenith's Disc. There that is. Another Rune Guard. Get the Quick Cloak. Re-up the Vigors. Closing in on another ulti. Got ulti. Need to cast on the next damage push. Looks like it's here. Cast it. There it is. Re-up the Vigors. Am running low on... Yeah, like... You can see that... It's because of that dodge roll there. Kind of uses a lot of stam, and then when I hit the next rapids, pretty down on resources here. However, I have my pot, and then I'm going to get an orb. There's the orb, there's the pot. Wham bam boom, back at over 75% resources, all is good. Probably also maybe somebody cast Lamia's in there or something. There's the disc. Alright, so now we've retrieved the scroll, our scroll from EP land, and you can see F tier and some EP are forming up to come and get us. Here comes the bomb. I have my ulti, cast the ulti. Re-up the Vigors. Need to re-up the Rune Guard. There's that. We had kind of a chaotic stacking situation last night, so we didn't really have that many prototypical stacks where like the synergy combination was ultra crisp. Got ulti, cast ulti, because it kind of looks like they're pushing here. Re-up rapids. Re-up Rune Guard. Get some more vigors. rapids. Need the disc. You can see this is hectic because there's like the actual crown, but the crown is not the one with the scroll, which is never great. So you can see that the group is having a hard time figuring out to go with the scroll or to go with the actual crown. So it leads to this kind of divided movement. I think ideally you want the crown to be the one who picks up the scroll. You can see at the head of the group putting down the rune, or the Zenith's disc. Now going to cast a rune guard. Here they're coming on an attack, so going to hit the ulti. There's the ulti. Need the rune guard. There's the rune guard, which was perfectly timed because we just ate their damage push. Once again, very close to being stammed out. When you are at that low health, like it is true, triage your stam and focus only on keeping up rapids. I don't think Vigor actually ends up dropping here. Yeah, see, neither does Quick Cloak. It's just kind of touch and go with the stam. Okay. They're obviously pushing here, so it's a time to cast the ulti. There it goes. The kind of flip side to taking an attack is that it gives you a good time to attack, so am anticipating stacking them and casting a rune break on them. In the meantime, I need to get Zenith's down. There's Zenith's, entire group runs through it. I'm also going to be looking for a rune guard. Yeah, there's the rune guard. Re-up the vigors, all is good. There's another disc. This is kind of like when I was most in the groove on this roll. And this is like a tough assignment because we're like in constant movement, but I zoomed specifically in on this like 25-minute scroll run, and like all the group buffs were, you know, sky high as they should be. Even minor courage, which requires the rune, which in a wide open scenario like this, you'd think that that would, you know, lend itself towards low uptime. But again, just proof that while it's hardest to maintain, you still can. There's the rune guard. There's their damage push, so you need the ulti. There's the ulti. There's the rapids re-up. There's the disc. Pop more vigors. Need quick cloak. Well, there's rapids. And then quick cloak. More group movement chaos here. I think we go through the tunnel. Ulti's about to come up. Ulti is up. You might be in, well, I think it's been called out in the chat that we're going to push back on them here, and so like we're not taking big damage here, so you don't want to cast it going into the tunnel because they're not like all up on us. You want to be casting it when we come back out. However, I am trying to buff up the group because we're in a static situation. Yeah. Here, on the other hand, it's very easy to get the Zenith's disc because the group must funnel through a narrow area. Ulti is back. Cast the ulti because we're getting pushed. Disc. That's such a wonky movement. It's taking us like 10 years to get through this tunnel. This is a bit dicey. Let's see. Necro DD is dead. Necro Healer is alive. So let's see if we get our Necro Res here. No. There we go. Probably the Necro Healer cast their barrier right when we were getting bombed there, so they were starting out from 0. But you can see there's the res. And to the credit of those that were dead, they were like immediately ready to receive the res and got right back into combat. It is a travesty when you see people get a res on them and then just like dick around like because they've zoned out or something, and like the group is expecting you to get up, get your buffs back up, and like continue on. And so if you don't do that, like it's just kind of like, you know, what are you doing? It's again pretty easy to keep the buffs up in here because we've got good movement here now, and everybody's running through the disc. Got the ulti, hit the ulti. So, oh, I guess I just cast it there. I was going to say that the Rune Guard was down for a few seconds, so I'm looking for a place to refresh it where the group kind of coalesces together. There's the quick cloak, and then you can see that like this is a good scenario. Most of the group is within radius for it, and then there's the cast. Can see movement is better here. Continuing to backpedal and put this disc down in front of the group. The only time that your mag is really under stress when playing on this role is when you have to cast the seed shield, or ... if you're an idiot and you accidentally cast the seed shield instead of a rune break. Outside of that, I would say that if you're floating near max stam or max mag anyway, it's like perfectly fine to refresh something like the Rune Guard at 10 seconds ish, ... if a good opportunity presents itself, right? Because you're not stressing your mag really by overcasting because you're already at full anyway. And as a general, habit, and then with like vigors and such, like, uh, recasting those a little bit early when you have surplus of that resource is totally okay, because you don't know what's going to happen over the next like handful of seconds. If a 36 man group came over this hill or something, I would be glad that I'd cast Rune Guard a couple seconds early, because now I don't have to worry about casting it for a little bit longer. Disc, I think. Yeah, there's Disc looking for a Rune Guard. There's the Rune Guard. Now looking for a Disc. Well, need Quick Cloak and then a Disc. Close to ulti. Really need that ulti. There it is. There it goes. Need the Rune Guard. There it goes. Need to re-up the vigors. There that goes. Quick Cloak. Rune Guard. Yes, the Necro Skulls. You love to see it. Need the Rune Guard. Now the group is all grouped up. There that is. Got the ulti back for when they push again. Anyway, if you're watching as a support or as a prospective support, you can kind of see the general pattern holds that cast the disc in the direction that the group is moving in. Like you can see, cast it here, group just move through it. Cast Rune Guard when the group coalesces. Obviously, keep up your Quick Cloak, keep up the Rapids, cast Vigor. Make sure that you don't neglect to cast your ultimate. Here's some good movement. Cast Rune Guard on the stacks. You don't need to spam Rune Guard, or sorry, Rune Break on the stacks. As with the other synergy casters, one stack, one cast will suffice. I guess one thing that I really want to actually draw attention to is, as you've been watching this, I would hope that one of the main things that you see is that, and this goes for all roles, but we're talking support here, there's no just kind of chillin' playing the role, right? You can see I'm making a cast every second while we're playing. A lot of the interstitial ones are kind of just re-upping on vigor, but you don't see me like running for 10 seconds and like all I'm doing is following crown, or like following crown and only casting rapids or something like that. Like it's a very active role. Like every role played at a high level is incredibly active. It's the most so for the healers. That's why like to be a really top end healer you basically have to be like part machine, and like have titanium fingers and that sort of thing, because you are simply making so many casts. But like there's no like, you might think that playing support is like one of the more, and not like laid back or relaxed, but like less demanding. Often people sometimes think that, but it's not the case. You can see that like it's a lot of work to maintain buffs at a high level no matter what you're playing, and that's true. I would hope that if you've watched like some of my videos from a DD POV, and you'll see it's kind of like the same thing of like when not on attack but still have some stamina, how about cast some vigors? And you know, you do that, and then lo and behold, you've got 85% uptime on your vigor at the end of the night, and most of that stamina that you cast would have just been wasted, right? Because when you're maxed out on your stamina bar, like you're still getting ticks of regen and ticks from lamias and uh, combustion synergies that you're hitting and stuff, and all that's just wasted unless you're actually making use of the resources that you have. Not completely taxing yourself, not stamming yourself out, but just make sure that you're always doing something. And so, anyway, back to the support. You can see that I'm always doing something. I'm always looking for an opportunity to be doing something. I'm not like just letting things come to me as I'm playing the role. You know, you're always looking for like, has the group coalesced? If so, get in the middle of it and cast your rune guard. If the rune guard is up and your vigors are up, try to get in front of the group to cast your Xenos' disc. If your ultimate is up and we're in a combat scenario, that's kind of like, apart from keeping up rapids, you need to be making sure that the moment we start taking damage or are about to take damage, like you get that ultimate cast, because like that's what you're there for. And if you're not doing that, then you know, when it comes to classes, like if you're not using a marquee ability from your class, then it's like you're defeating the point about why that class was even selected to be in the raid to begin with. There you can see that blocking ate up a lot of my stam. I'm a little bit, I have an ice staff on like a DD, right? So when you block, it takes magicka, so it's not nearly as punishing to block. But that was something I learned from playing the roles, that when you block on a support, that can definitely also eat your stam. It still is good to block, but I don't know, it did kind of make me wish that I had an ice staff or something. I'm glad watching this video, like I see a lot of people backpedaling, like that's great. It used to be that in our raids, if we were moving in like one direction, like away from the enemies here, people would just like keep their head down and just kind of mindlessly go in this direction and ignore everything that was happening behind them. Like if proxies and destros lit up behind them, they would have no clue. But now people largely do backpedal with their view back, you know, on the actual threats at hand, so that if they see proxies light up in a destro, then like they're primed to expect to cast barrier like uh, extremely quickly. Like making sure that you're panning the camera around and aware of your surroundings is definitely like a higher level PvP type of thing. Um, it just lets you use your abilities, right, with so much more context because you have that additional information. People get stacked, so use the ulti, cast the disc, cast the rune guard, re-up the vigors. Almost to ulti. Can see the group damage is getting a little bit more dialed in. In the beginning it was very kind of funky and haphazard, but now things are hitting a little bit better. see Soka, which is always good. Getting close to the end of the video here, which is probably pretty good because it's likely gone on for longer than the actual video has. I think we pull through the gate and then we push back through in like a pretty classic move. But F tier being, you know, experienced PvP players, they ain't taking that bait, so instead they've gone over the side of the wall. Yeah, you can see them over there to the right. Cast the disc, cast the rune guard, re-up the vigors. So this is good. You see the group moving very well, and like, granted, I think this is about when F tier kind of gave up on trying to get the scroll back, but you can see that, like, I mean, it's true in this instance for something like the disc, but for a lot of buffs and things that happen in the raid, like, they require, like, it's a two-way street. Like, you need to do your job, but then also somebody else needs to do their job. If one of you don't, then the thing that you're trying to accomplish won't work. So, you know, you see that classically with like a damage synergy, right? Like if you're a Sork healer and you drop like a conduit on a stack, you've done your job. If a DD doesn't hit that conduit, you know, the group doesn't benefit from that extra damage, and it kind of feels bad if you're the Sork. But at that point, you know, that's not on you. That's on the DD who wasn't fast enough to hit the conduit. Similarly, like if you're on Crown on this roll and you're casting your Zenith's disc, if other people are like randomly off here on the sides or like lagging way behind or, you know, whatever, and that's not really what's going on in this picture, but, you know, we've seen that plenty of times during this video. You've done your job. You can't, it's like you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Like, you know, you've brought the horse to the water. If other people are off doing who knows what, not on Crown, and so they're missing out on the buffs, you know, ultimately it'll reflect on your uptime in the log, but that's not on you. That's on somebody else's bad movement. That's just kind of like, you know, outside of watching the video, there's no way to know. Whose fault that is for having lower uptime, but, you know, if you're playing the role, you can often see these things, and so, like, in the back of your head, you can just know that if group movement sucked one day, and so you had some lower uptimes, just make some snarky comments in the chat about people staying on Crown, and hopefully that will induce them to step it up. Only semi-kidding. Anyway, I think that's it. So to recap, yeah, the buff uptimes here were really high, way higher than any other time that this support role has been used in a raid, so it is very much possible. You've seen it here first. It just requires doing all those things, like staying active, staying engaged, always making a cast, always looking for opportunities to make like an efficient cast. So staying towards the head of the group so you can get your disc down, looking for opportunities that the group coalesces to get your Rune Guard of Freedom down, casting your vigors, not overcasting your rapids, casting your ultimate frequently, and when you see or foresee an opportunity of damage being likely in the future. There is no just chillin' on this or any role in the raid. I don't think that any of our raiders are in the just chillin' mode, but like if you're like a new player to the guild or something, let that be just putting that out there on Main Street. There is no just chillin'. There is no along for the ride. Nobody is interested in carrying somebody who isn't trying to get the most out of their role, that type of thing. If you're new, you're new, and you don't know. Like, nobody starts their PvP career fully formed. But just know that like the skill cap on every role is very high, and it will require putting in work to climb the pyramid. But I'm kind of rambling now. Thanks for watching this video if you made it this far. Thank you for all the supports that play on those roles in the raids. After the crown, you're basically the single point of failure in the raid, so that's a big responsibility to take onto your shoulders. Not everybody is kind of cut out for that. So tip of the cap to those that do volunteer to take on that burden. And yeah, we can all do our own part, support, make more casts, yada yada yada. Rest of the group, make sure that you're playing well, playing smart on crown, so that those nice buffs that the supports and the healers and everybody else are trying to give you, you actually get them. So, alright, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.